Alright folks, we're back with the part 2 finally for the 7 deadly sins represented as Kaiju. Now I do apologize for taking so long to upload as I'm moving soon and it's been getting a bit hectic to get everything in order. But the regular upload schedule should be fixed once I get settled, or it may never be settled since airports confuse me and I might accidentally be sent off to Turkey or something. Anyway, the Kaiju in this part 2 may be a bit surprising compared to what some of you would have thought would be in here. Again, these lists are based purely off of preference and everyone's entitled to have their own opinion, so don't break the Geneva Convention in the comment section. With that little tidbit out of the way, let's get right into it. Pride is the very sin that led to the downfall of Lucifer in the Bible, and one of the most, if not the most common sin in humanity. Pride is the excessive belief in one's own abilities, often viewing themselves higher than everyone else around them, and demanding a certain level of recognition for it. Now, most of you would have wanted me to put Ghidorah, but personally I just couldn't. Because the dude ran from his old planet because he was the weakest and then tried to enforce his own rule on Earth. Now, while he does show a superiority complex that few Kaiju can match, I don't think any other Kaiju fits the sin more than Godzilla. I was really surprised to see no one in the comments even mention Goji. Most were either Ghidorah or the Scar King representing the sin. Godzilla is the king of the Kaiju and an alpha, with no other monster matching him in battle prowess. And when other titans do question this, well, things tend to get a bit ugly. Do you remember when Godzilla wanted all the smoke with Kong just because he didn't respond to his alpha call? Like, how are you gonna pick a fight with a dude because he didn't want to leave his home just to serve you? He blasts this atomic breath into the hollow earth just to send a basically it's on sight message to Kong. Now Kong is also pretty prideful, with him roaring directly back in the King of the Monsters' face, even as his feet are directly on Kong's chest, as he could kill him. We also see this little snippet where he exhales like a bull when Rodan doesn't bow down to him immediately when he is in his presence. He gave the "I'll mess you up" look when the firecrack stork didn't show him his respect. And Rodan immediately submitted wisely. Rodan again is yet another titan with pride. Since the moment Ghidorah did his alpha call, he attacked the dude refusing to serve him, until Ghidorah put him in his place. Now Godzilla kills a lot of other monsters and most are justified, but there are some cases where it seemed just a bit too much. If a monster doesn't submit to him, he basically just kills them. When he first fought Tiamat, he had his foot on her head and basically said submit or die. And then later in the new Godzilla x Kong movie, he killed her after forcing her out of her own home. But to be fair, she is a destroyer titan and probably would have caused more problems down the line if he didn't. The only time his pride was seriously hurt was when an ape known just as the Rival defeated a younger Godzilla and basically kicked him out of his own home. Then after who knows how long, when Godzilla is much older, he tries to come back and settle the score, but the ape was already dead, either from old age or killed by Tiamat, but more than likely the latter. So Goji's ego probably took a big hit, knowing that he won't ever be able to resettle one of the first fights he lost. Regardless, he still is for the most part a neutral force, caring about the natural balance and even saving other titans such as Behemoth from other titans. Now, while his pride has led him to do some less than heroic things, it's probably the main reason as to why he's the undisputed king of the monsters. Guys, when I say this one was hard to list, I mean it was really hard to list. Like, I went to bed trying to find what Kaijus could possibly fit sloths, since most of the things are usually up and about. Sloth in short is the lack of physical or spiritual effort, often neglecting to do things that you know you have to. Or to be frank, just a general disinterest in life. At first I was gonna put Doug, but from the times we've seen him on screen, he's either hunting or stealing food. And then there was a small part of me that wanted to put Behemoth, but I couldn't bring myself to do it, since he's fairly active protecting the forest and the natural ecosystems of the world. Then I remembered seeing this titan, with just seconds of screen time, whose introduction was basically it sleeping. Methuselah is one of the least studied titans and one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in terms of mass, even more than Shimo or Ghidorah. Methuselah is a titan that has fused with the landscape with trees and mountains seen on its back, which just adds to its mass. It kinda looks a bit similar to an alligator snapping turtle in terms of design, except for the horns and sharp teeth. This titan is also quite possibly the oldest, with it likely existing since the earth was just a pile of rock and ash, which would make it almost 1 billion years old, and throughout all this time it spends most of it sleeping. Now most titans do go into a hibernation period, but most of the time it's just to gain some sort of power up. But this dude just sleeps because he can. He only wakes up because of Ghidorah's alpha call, since I would imagine the thought of being killed for disobedience outweighs the need for sleep, even for this titan. There is an old tale that Methuselah's back was once home to an old village, and one of the inhabitants left for a while, but when he came back, there were now mountains where the village once stood. Whenever this guy moves, it's just to feed on energy from different parts of the earth and then sleep. And from the little information we have on him, it's usually between thousands to hundreds of thousands of years in terms of sleep. I wouldn't even be surprised if this number could reach 1 million. To be fair, when you are as old as the earth itself and seen basically everything, you'd probably get tired as well. So while this big guy isn't the total embodiment of the sin, he is the best titan to fit it in the monsterverse. So I know for a fact that you guys expected him somewhere in the list, but I bet you didn't think that he would have taken up 2 slots, which are greed and lust. Greed is the immoderate love or desire for riches or earthly possessions to the point where it puts others in harm's way or even the person it represents. And lust is the excessive desire for sexual gratification. Now, some of you may have been surprised that I didn't put the mutos for lust, but in my opinion they were just trying to reproduce to continue the species. I doubt they were mating to satisfy their weird alien needs per se. Scar King on the other hand does. Firstly, the dude has a bunch of offspring, one of which being Zuko. Since he is in total control of the apes on the ground, he does get his pick of mates, and whether the female apes want his advances or not, it's not up to them. And I'm not gonna go too in detail with this since I don't want YouTube to take down my video. But basically if the females didn't put out, then they'd be punished or even killed. I'm not even sure he lets his subordinates pick mates. I think it's just strictly him who does all the breeding. All the other apes are just too terrified of the dude to retaliate, and with good reason, since like Kong, he is decently bigger than most of them. In terms of greed, this dude wanted total control over the surface. And after Godzilla basically banished him and his followers to the magma wasteland, he decided to enslave poor Shima with a crystal which allows him to have seemingly total control over her. And if she ever tried to resist, the crystal ends up causing her unbearable pain. He also places most of his fellow apes into slavery for his own needs, without any regard for their own well-being. The luckiest position you could hope to get under his rule was a soldier or a favored offspring, like Zuko. Since although he doesn't show any particular fondness for Zuko, he does send him out on a few missions with the older apes. He wanted to take total control over the surface so bad that he was willing to wipe out any life forms that didn't fit under his rule, or any that he just didn't like, such as the humans. Heck, he even tried to take on an evolved king and a mecha ape bigger than him. So from what we know of this guy, he enslaved Shimo and chained her up to carry about his plans and even his own people to accomplish his own mission. And he also has quite a few children from the very likely unwilling mothers who didn't have a choice. Fortunately, karma always does come full circle, as his greed and mistreatment of his own people led his own son betraying him, the kaiju he once held captive freezing him, and his own species or closely related genus crushing him to bits. So that'll just about do it for this video. I'm sure some of you would have preferred different kaiju for this list and were expecting Ghidorah to be on it, but in my opinion these kaiju just took the place from him. My next video should cover the 7 heavenly virtues of dinosaur characters or possibly even kaiju. I'll do a poll for you guys to vote. But let me guys know which kaiju you would have replaced on the list, or if you even agree with the listings. Don't forget to like and subscribe so I can continue making vids like these, and I'll see you guys in the next video.